Welcome back to Off the Carousel on Field of 68, our introduction to all 60 plus new coaches across Division One. Today, we're getting to know new Rice head coach Rob Lanier. Coach, thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kevin.
Now, this spring was obviously a unique one for you. You were out of work for 72 hours between jobs, between SMU and Rice. How much of a
Yeah.
whirlwind was that long weekend, and how did the opportunity at Rice come about?
Well, it's actually hard to describe the turnaround and the whirlwind of events, but um, I was really excited when I finally I say finally, but I didn't have a lot of time to wallow. I got a call within 48 hours. I got a call from Tommy McClellan, and he's an energetic guy with great vision and passion that came through clearly on our initial talk. And then by the next afternoon, he was at my home, and he was there from about 2:30 in the afternoon to about 10 p.m. And it was a relatively easy decision to make in light of the circumstances and the landscape and the profile of Rice. Made a lot of sense to me at the time.
I can't imagine you were expecting to be let go at SMU after a 20-win year, obviously building pretty significantly on year one. How shocking was it when you got that news, and then how hard was it to turn the page and start thinking about what's next? Was the plan as soon as you got the news that yes, I want to find something else and be a head coach next year, or did the Rice thing sort of come out of thin air?
Yeah, it was quite a range of emotions. I guess uh, directly before things went down at SMU, there was an inkling, um, but it did turn out to be quite a surprise and something I didn't truly see coming. And so that was on a Thursday. And Friday, certainly, I had I didn't know what the future held. But interestingly enough, my son took an official visit to Rice. My wife accompanied him on that visit. And obviously, you talk to your spouse about a lot of things. And the landscape that we operate in it has changed. And so, relative to that, my wife is very understanding of the way I want to build a program. And certainly we felt like we were on that path where we were. And so certain places represent an opportunity to do it in the truest sense. So she recommended on Friday, knowing that there was an opening at Rice, she suggested by asking the question, what about Rice? Which is sort of odd because she's not totally like in the know of what's happening on the college basketball landscape. But for whatever reason, she knew there was an opening and she just posed the question. And there was no reason to think that Rice would have any particular interest in me. And so, in the midst of the emotions of what we were dealing with, um, the next night I went to visit one of my staff members who had just had a new baby. And on my drive home, I got the call from Tommy, and things kind of happened quickly from there.
Um, Obviously always hard to change jobs and get, your foundation built again, but staying in the same league, same state, many of your same staff moving over. Like how
Mm.
much has that eased the transition for you going from job to job this spring?
Yeah, relatively speaking, it matters. That we have a particular way of doing things, and you spend less time trying to educate your staff on how we operate, and more time investing in the players and moving forward and educating the players and community on who we are and how we do things. And then the additions that we made to the staff, those guys can get their feet under them more quickly because they're coming on board with a staff that does have a mode of operation.
You've had a unique journey in this profession. You got a head coaching job really young at Siena, then 15 years as assistant working for guys like Billy Donovan and Rick Barnes, and then got another crack at a head coach. Now you've been at three different programs here in the last several years. Going back to being an assistant after being a head coach and working for guys like Billy and Rick, what did you learn from those guys, and how did you grow as a coach from your first opportunity to now?
Yeah, I was fortunate that I worked for Rick on two different occasions over 10 years. I was an assistant for 2 years at Texas before going to Siena. And, I say it all the time. I got the Siena job before I was ready. I was much better at interviewing than I was at leading. And, but the experience itself, I learned a lot from. But when I left Siena, I left with the mindset that I had such a good opportunity there. It's a great place that by and large, if you study the business, people don't get that many chances. So if I'm going to stay in the business, I'm probably going to be an assistant. And so I think I became a better assistant. And my focus was trying to help Dave Lato build this program in Virginia and trying to contribute at the best possible level at Florida. And so Florida was a unique experience because between Mark Dagnall, who's the head coach of the OKC Thunder, Larry Shiat, who's legendary in our profession, Shaka Smart, who is probably constructing a Hall of Fame career, and Richard Pitino, who's doing an unbelievable job in his own right. It was a great place to come to work every day and Billy Donovan, who's a surefire Hall of Famer. It was great to come to work every day and be around these great basketball people, great basketball people, great minds, and be in such a collaborative environment where obviously there's some competitive juice in that office suite, but probably not as much ego as you might think. So it was a really cool experiment. And it was when I thought about building a staff, I thought about that environment. I wasn't trying to replicate those personalities, but it did help me to have a clear picture on the collaborative type environment that I wanted to have if I should ever become a head coach again. And then being able to go back with Rick, it definitely gave me a greater appreciation for his greatness, the longevity and the consistent success that he's had, and why. And so I think I did a better job of assisting him. And I think the time with Billy, and by the time I got back to Rick, having been a head coach, I was able to have a better appreciation for the experience I've had as a head coach and bring that to my role as an assistant. And I thought I was able to serve those guys much better having had that experience as a head coach.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We are going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay booster too from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show.
You mentioned that loaded Florida staff. I'm sure you said it was an incredible experience to work at the time. Did you realize while you were working with them how bright a future everyone in that office had, and how cool has it been to track everyone's journey over the last decade plus since?
Yeah, I couldn't say that I could forecast what Shaka ended up doing or where Mark Dagnall is now. But I do, so I couldn't say I knew they were going to have that bright of a future. I thought they were going to have bright futures, but I was well aware of how bright they are on a daily basis. The same with Richard Pitino. I knew I was around smart people every day, and not just those guys. Darren Hurts and Mike Weiner, who's an assistant for Indiana Pacers. There's just a Matt McCall, who ended up becoming a head coach and having a good run of his own. It just seemed like there was no weak links around there, and I just thought it was a great environment to grow in for myself as a guy who was still wanted some longevity in the profession, but I wasn't certain that I was going to get another opportunity to be a head coach. So I wanted to be in that kind of environment.
You mentioned your wife's interest in Rice, and obviously you were familiar with it being in the league, being in Texas, but such a unique job with the academics, playing in a high level league, obviously the state of Texas and how it has grown in college basketball. I'm curious for you, what really attracted you to Rice once you thought about it, and why it made such sense once you were able to sit down and realize it was an opportunity that you could get. Why Rice was the right fit for you?
Well, just from a basketball standpoint, number one, the reason why we improved from year to 1-2 when we were in Dallas is because we had 10 guys return. And from year 2 to year 3, we were going to have just as many return. And I'm not just speculating that. I know that the guys wanted to return because of the environment we had created. And I wanted, if I were going to be a head coach again, to be at a place where you could establish a level of continuity and relationships can be at the core of the job you're trying to do. And as the landscape changes, you hear the word transactional a lot in our profession. And I wanted to be at a place where the relationships could still be at the core. And a school that is academically driven and academic excellence is at the core, then you're operating, by and large, there's exceptions, of course, from a pool of young people that are putting academics at the forefront of their decision. And so young people that are choosing an education are going to be less inclined, number one, to leave at the first sign of basketball turbulence. And they're also going to be less inclined to put a price tag on that drives the decision. Doesn't mean that we get to be exempt from what's going on, but it's not going to be the driver in a lot of cases. And so I want to coach guys for 2, 3, 4 years as much as possible. And I want to have those relationships as much as possible. And so I wanted to be a place. So right off the top, this felt to me like one of those places that has a niche in our profession that lends itself to the possibility of continuity and relationships. And that was my first inclination.
Do you think there are still enough kids out there that can be sold on kind of the 40-year decision instead of the 4-year decision, or now I guess the 1-year decision, right? That embrace the academics and are willing to maybe sacrifice something in the short term to have that long-term payoff. And how do you find those kids in 2024 recruiting?
Well, there's a lot of people playing basketball now, and there's a lot of players playing it at a high level. And there's a lot of young people and parents that do care about life beyond basketball. And I think if you're a good enough student to get into Rice, then you've already thought about life beyond basketball. And I've spent a good portion of my career trying to convince young people that there is a life after basketball. And now I'm at a place that embodies that, that you have to have some sense of that on the front end. And so I do believe there's plenty of young people that, again, I don't think it exempts you from whether, NIL or whatever. I just think that the young people that will choose Rice, their decision won't be driven by that. And I say this all the time, there's money out there for young people. Oftentimes, and in most cases, particularly at the level that most of us operate at, that it ain't life-changing money for a lot of people. And so the question is, can you provide a life-changing experience for young people on the court, in the classroom, and through the 4-year college experience? Because I do think college can still be a great experience for young people, right? And I think getting an education can still have great value. And I want to live in that world.
Last question for you, Coach. Maybe a life-changing experience for you getting to coach your son. I know you've gotten to do that at SMU, and now he'll follow you over to Rice. How unique has that been? How special has that been? And what is the dynamic like in practice with father and son during work?
Yeah, one of the best experiences of my life. And I was scared to death of it. We all love our children, so I won't claim to love mine more than anybody else, but as much as you can love them, I certainly do. And so with him, I want, we talk about great experiences. I think the biggest fear you ever have as a parent is for you to do things or be in a situation that compromises that relationship. And so it's easier for me to support him as a dad outside of coaching and not have to worry about that. Because inevitably you're going to be a little bit tougher on them when you're coaching them. So I didn't want it. I was afraid about entering that into our relationship. And as it turned out, he's such a hard worker. He's such a good teammate. And he's respected enough in the locker room. People always say that if a kid is your best player or worst player, it makes it easy. And anything else in between can be quite complicated. And in our case, he wasn't at either extreme. And so it was somewhat complicated. So I approached it with so much caution that I've been accused of not giving him a fair shot. But I'd rather his mom and him be pissed at me than for him to go into a locker room full of guys who thinks he's getting something he doesn't deserve. And then he has a bad experience, and now I'm involved in that. So I'd rather him just be pissed at me. And so what's happened is he's gotten what he's earned, and he's settled into it, and he's got the respect of his teammates, and he's having a great experience. In fact, the only reason he's playing again is because I'm at Rice. And so it's worked for us, and it's made us closer, and that's been a joy for sure.
Well, Coach, we look forward to seeing you and your son on the floor this season.